All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Mimi Bouchard here with me on the show. Mimi is a tech CEO and podcast host who is passionate about personal development, hence being here today on this show. Hello, Mimi. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to chat.
Yeah, likewise. I'm gonna start off with my cliche opening question, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh my gosh. What's my passion? My passion is helping people realize their potential because we all have that voice inside of us that says, oh, I want more, I want more. And that little voice, that little feeling is really what's driven me my whole life. So that's my passion.
Yeah, fair. I love that. Well, if you would, Mimi, please share whatever is relevant to share, whatever you feel is relevant to share regarding your backstory and how you ended up on the path that you're on.
That's a great question. So I started in my personal development journey very early. I was very lucky to have been exposed to some quite incredible personal development books and resources when I was about 16, 17 years old. So I was very young when I got into this work, but I also had gone through a lot when I was quite young. I went through quite a dark time from the ages of 12 to 16, 18 years old. So pretty much my whole teenage years were quite dark for me. I grew up in Toronto in, a loving family. Nothing really terrible happened with family when I was younger, except they didn't have much money. So there was always that money, worry that was just
Scarcity.
lingering. Yeah, the scarcity mindset. But really the hard stuff that I went through during that time was really more so just self-image related. I started to really realize that I didn't like myself. I didn't, like my body. I wanted to be different. I wish I was from a family that had more money. And I really compared my life to everyone else's. And I guess at that age, your hormones are also raging. So you're just not in your right frame of mind. But I really went to a low point, disordered eating disorder, and, just terrible use of drugs and alcohol at such a young age, self-harm stuff. Like I was just really not in a good place at all. And I just was in this mentality of, I am just not worthy. I am not good enough. I wish things were different for me. I thought in more of a victim mentality way where I didn't feel much responsibility for my life. And when I was, I think around 17 years old, I read my first personal growth book. My mom at the time was really getting into this work. So she was trying to make some extra money on the side in like a network marketing kind of company. And they were really all about personal growth. So she started reading these books because of that. And then she gave me a few, impactful books. And I, for some reason, the time that she gave it to me and that exact moment that I started reading the book was so important in my journey. I don't think I would have really read the book willingly if it wasn't at this pivotal time where I was just tired of feeling this way.
Yeah.
So, I read that first book. I was in university in Canada in my first semester, and I was partying a lot. I was doing a ton of drugs. I just wasn't feeling great. And then I read this book during the beginning of the second semester. And I just went into total like monk mode. I just decided to fully focus on what I wanted to do with my life, on what I wanted to create, on my future. I started solely focusing on my future. And I alienated myself from all of those, people in my life at the time that were just focused on partying and in the wrong kind of crowd. And I got a side job at a juice bar, and I was eating healthier, and I was skipping school to try to figure out what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur. So I quickly dropped out, and I decided that I needed to leave the country. I had no money. I just needed to figure it out. And I had this reinvigorated fire inside of me that life could be better for me and that I could reach that potential. And around that time, I had clarity because I stopped drinking and going out so much. And with that clarity, I started to hear that little voice inside of me again, that little voice that's like, Mimi, there's so much more out there for you. Mimi, you could create something huge, like the what if, that little voice that's just like, what if you could actually have a life like that? So I left university. I decided to work at a bar all summer and save up my money and move to London, England, which in my mind was somewhere really far away that spoke English. That was really the mindset that I had. And I was super young, just moved there on a whim. My family was like, what are you doing? I really was living paycheck to paycheck. At the time I'd quickly gone through that money I'd saved up that summer at the bar. And when I moved to London, I was, trying to make rent by working all these odd jobs like dog walking, working at a juice bar. I always worked at juice bars because it was like healthy food that I couldn't afford for free.
Right.
And then, like babysitting at night, and then really trying to work towards this online magazine that I wanted to create. So during that time, when I was reading those books, I decided, I really want to create an online magazine. I love to write. I love to talk about these certain topics. And at the time, it was a bit more surface level, like fashion and, health and stuff. But yeah. And then I moved to London and I found myself in front of quite an interesting opportunity to go on to a TV show. I was, 19, 20 years old, and I wanted to extend my working holiday visa in the UK. So I started to think to myself, how do I get a visa to stay here? And I was reaching out to like 100 people a day on my phone, asking if we could hang out. And I thought to myself, you know what, the TV industry could be good because I like to talk. Maybe I could be a presenter of sorts. So I started messaging all these. I was really a hustler back then. I guess I still am, but Apparently. It was really, it was this like hunger inside of me, this really hungry part of my life. I really just wanted it so badly. So I created a network in London out of nothing. I didn't know anyone when I moved there. And ultimately I ended up meeting my old agent who said to me, well, you're nobody now, but if you want to get a visa to stay in the UK, you should try to get onto this TV show. It's not a presenting gig. You're not going to get that with your Canadian accent. But if you go into this reality show that is quite big in the UK, it's called Made in Chelsea. It's kind of like The Hills. It's just, really random reality show. It's pretty much fake.
Right.
So she said to me, if you get onto that show, I'll represent you right away and they'll get you a visa. I can promise you that. So that was my next focus is, how do I get on this show? So I figured out a way to do it. I networked like, a mad woman, and I got on it. So I ended up having quite a cool experience doing that. I was pretty much a side character for most of it. So I wasn't really a main character, but I was so naive at the time. I would just say yes to whatever the producers wanted me to do because I really wanted this visa and I really wanted, to do good. And I, was easily manipulated at the time. So it was definitely a big learning experience. And around that time, I started getting more and more into personal development, and on my social media channel, started posting a lot more about personal development. And I slowly, decided to leave that show, and I figured out, what I really wanted to do with my life. And that was beginning to create an online brand and tell people about what I'm learning and creating online courses about personal development. And I was still really actively in this crazy growth cycle with my life. And it was a very rapid growth that I was going through because I was just going through so much and living so many, different lives at the same time. And over the past 7 years since I left that show, I have moved into a few different places. I've met my now fiance, and we are now living in the Bahamas. We've been living here for 3 years, and I've created a very, very successful audio app. And it's kind of like meditations. We call it meditations right now, but we're moving away from that soon because it's different. It's not just meditation. It's really just a new kind of category of audio.
What is the app called?
Superhuman.
Cool.
Yeah. So we offer, it's meditations, guided audio content with very energizing music for every moment of the day. And I'll tell you a backstory as to how that was kind of created. So when I was living in London at that time, there was this really weird year where I'd started that TV show, but I was still so broke because they paid you like $50 a day to film.
Right.
And you're on camera and they try to make you out to seem like this rich girl from a rich family. And that was farthest away from the truth for me. Yeah. And I was still going and like babysitting at night to try to make rent, like my 600 pound a month rent. Like I couldn't afford it. So I was still doing little things. And then people started gifting you things because you start getting a social platform. So I started getting gifted a lot of things, and I would work with this like designer handbag company that would rent me designer bags. So I was seen looking like I was all this so wealthy. But at the time, I remember a moment I had like $8 in my bank account. So it was really just this weird double life. And I was so terrified to admit to anyone that I was just not in that financial place. Obviously, it's a very embarrassing thing as a young person that is seemingly this way from the public perspective. So it was this really weird moment. But then what I started to do, because I wanted it so badly, I really was driven by creating freedom for myself, especially because growing up, my parents didn't have loads. I really, really wanted to create financial freedom. So that was a big, big driver for me. So I started to record. Well, I started to try to meditate. That was the number one thing. I was really interested in all these personal growth tools. So I started to try to meditate, and I really couldn't stick to it for some reason. I always said my brain works too quickly. I'm just not the kind of person that can meditate. That was what I would say to people that asked me if I meditated. And I started learning. I was obsessed with reading books, and I still am. I was reading these books about visualization and neuroscience and how the brain works, and how, acting as if you're already the person you want to be and changing your self-image through things like meditation. It's a really good way to focus on that thing. It really changes your life even more. So I thought to myself, okay, how do I harness the power of visualization, the power of embodying the energy of my future, but without actually meditating, because meditating is boring for me. At the time, I thought to myself, meditating is, I kind of want to just clear my head. I don't even feel different after. I really gave it my best shot at the time, and it didn't resonate. So then I started recording. I got this just intuitive hit. And I remember I was in my tiny studio apartment in London, and I just picked up my phone and I went to the voice memo app on my phone, and I just started talking, and I just started speaking these visualizations. And I created these 20-minute, or, I made a lot of them because I'd get bored of them quickly, but I made a lot of these audios of just me talking, saying, Mimi, this is your life. This is what it really feels like to look into your bank account and to go into the store and be able to pick up anything without looking at the price tag, and to be able to help mom and dad, and to be able to, create these big things for yourself, to have, people tell you, wow, you're doing amazing. I'm so proud of you. I really visualized all these things that I wanted. And I just listened to them in the background of my life. I listened to these audio files, and then I started a podcast 5 years ago. So I started to use my professional microphone, and I'd add music from YouTube, and I would just create these little audios that I would listen to with really like state changing, energizing, motivational music. And then these words and these affirmations and these visualizations that I would say to myself. And I'd listen to these audios while I was getting ready for bed, while I was cooking lunch, while I was walking to the gym, while I was on the subway, while I was doing all these everyday activities. Instead of listening to a podcast, sometimes I would just, listen to one of these. And it just became part of my life. And then I noticed that things started to change so quickly for me. Things in my life just started to kick off faster than ever. At the beginning, it was a slow increment of, good positive changes, because I was getting into personal growth. I was doing the work, I was journaling. But then once I introduced this, it was like the craziest change just started happening. And now I know the science behind it. There are so many aspects to why this type of audio works. And I can get into that after. But ultimately, then, 3 years ago, I started a subscription platform for my audience. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to add these audios so that people understand what they are. I'm just going to call them meditation, but like they're not really meditation. And and on this platform, it was like healthy recipes, workouts, and then these meditations. I called them right at the bottom just to, add something a bit different. I started this platform. At the time, it was called Mimi Method. I really just didn't know what I was doing. It was just an extra way to make money.
Sure.
And the meditations were the most popular part of the entire thing. People were raving about them. So then I thought to myself, okay, I need to create something from this. This is a sign. And I got one of those intuitive hits again. And then I saved all the money I'd made from that subscription platform and put it all into an app. And I called it Superhuman, and I made it all these audios only. And I made it for every moment of the day. So from walking, getting ready, cooking, cleaning, working out, running, seated even. There are seated ones too. I just created this app just with these. And I was like energizing music. The music has to make you feel, no silent sitting, no clearing your mind, like just actionable activation style content that just like brings that fire from within you. And yeah, so I essentially created that. And since then we've grown over the past 2 years, almost 2 years, to tens of thousands of users completely through word of mouth. We haven't even done any proper marketing yet. We've just been keeping our head above water with all the growth. I'm hiring a lot. Like the growth has been pretty incredible, but yeah, it's just been the biggest manifestation to date for me because the business has just completely kicked off. And I know that it's because obviously people want this type of content. It resonates with the person that says, I'm not really good at traditional meditation. But then also because my energy is where I need it to be to have a company of this size. Yeah. So that's kind of a long story short as to how I created the company and a kind of high level version of my story. But I've really transformed every pillar of my life, from my relationship with myself and my body. I went from hating myself, disordered eating, to every extreme you could think of. And then now to obviously, loving who I am and my body and having complete peace with myself. So that's an internal thing. I went from, having $8 in my bank account to now earning millions a year. And, I've had many transformations with every area of my life, my relationships, my friendships, my spirituality, everything has just changed. And it has happened in quite a short amount of time, really like the past 7 years. And that's quick when it comes to everything that's happened. So
sure.
Yeah, that's kind of my story.
Amazing. Congratulations on all of that. I'm curious about the app. And so how many years ago did you release the app? You said 3 years ago?
Superhuman was August 2020.
Got it.
No, was it 2021? August 2021.
Cool. And it's just been word of mouth. And so is it a subscription kind of, do you have like a freemium kind of version?
Yeah.
And then
we have like a 2-week free trial, and then it's just a monthly or yearly subscription.
Yeah. I think that's a really great idea as someone whose mind is very active and is definitely a doer. Meditation at times is like, I don't want to stop, being active, and I think there's a lot of people out there that's a challenge for, more of a challenge based off of how they're sort of wired, right? Yeah, amazing. Congratulations. So what would you say is the biggest thing that led to, obviously, creating these sort of active meditations, if you will, for yourself? Would you say that's the biggest thing that led to your own changes, creating those and then listening to those? Or was there something, more?
I'm not going to just say it was the audios, because it was really a accumulation of everything that I was doing. I was doing a morning routine. I was journaling. I was not going out and drinking and partying and doing drugs every weekend like I used to. That was massive. When I stopped, like I still, every couple months maybe have half a glass of wine or something. I'm not sober, but I don't drink to get drunk at all. And I haven't for so long. And I don't touch recreational drugs. Like I used to do so much cocaine just to completely put it out there, and MDMA and all these pills. And oh my gosh, how was I doing that to myself? I used to smoke loads of cigarettes when I was out drinking with my friends. And I just can't believe that was me. It just feels so distant. So no, I don't think I will ever do those things again. But the biggest change, I think was the accumulation of all of those things. But I will say the massive shift happened when I started listening to those audios, because it was just like imprinting this new belief system into every single like cell in my body while I was living my life. And that's where real change happens. It's by being your future self in everyday moments. When you sit down to meditate for 20 minutes in the morning, you close your eyes and you feel great and your mind is all clear. And then you open up your eyes and you go throughout your day and you're the same freaking person as you were yesterday. So the trick is learning how to live your future now. It's to learn how to embody the self-image of your ultimate self. One of my favorite teachers and books, out there. It was written in the 50s by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. I would really recommend anyone listening to go read that book, because it's all about self-image psychology. Dr. Maxwell Maltz was known as the father of self-image psychology. And he really talks about how you see yourself literally dictates what you create in your life, who you become, the type of life you end up living. And that's what Superhuman is really based on. It's based off the belief that to get what you want, you must first become the kind of person that has it. And that's what's changed my life. That's what's helped tens and thousands of people that use the app change their lives too. And it's almost like the most efficient way to change your life, because it's like, you don't need to change a behavior. You don't need to carve out 20 minutes out of your day to do this thing. You just press play in the background of your life. And like, it just becomes this like subconscious programming. And then when you link these new thoughts and beliefs to everyday actions, let's say if you're doing a walking meditation and you're just listening to this nice, feel good walking meditation when you're walking your dog every morning for 15 minutes, it's like the Pavlov dog theory. When you are linking this new way of thinking and being and this new energy with an everyday action, walking your dog for 15 minutes every morning, then you just start to naturally change, and you don't even need at some point that meditation to feel that way. So it's just like that programming, and it's like a hack, that's how I feel it is. Cause I've never been great at like committing to things. I'm all over the place. I'm just like, I'm a bit messy minded. And this has been like one of the biggest things for me, is just to constantly kind of have that going on. And to just, link those new thoughts to what I already do. And it just makes it effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I can definitely relate to you and your path, and the the fact that, like I said earlier, meditation is a little more challenging for people whose mind's going a mile a minute all the time. And it sounds like yours definitely is. I think what you also touched on with, this idea of, I put it as be it to see it, you realizing that you are, floating in eternity and time is an illusion. And this version of yourself that you wish to step into, it's not something that you're necessarily creating. It's like a great guest I had, well, it's been a couple of years ago now, a guy named Derek Rydall. He talks about the law of emergence versus, as opposed to the law of attraction. He's like, the law of emergence is, let's say you find a acorn, a little boy finds an acorn on the side of the river, and he takes that and he puts it on his shelf in his room. It's going to remain an acorn. But if it remains where it's at, it gets the right sunlight, it gets the right air, it gets the right temperature, water, it's going to emerge from that potential within the acorn into an oak tree. And so that's really what you're talking about. It's already in there. And from the ultimate, perspective, time being illusory, and your future is affecting your now the same way your past affects your now, I believe. And so as you tap into that future version of yourself, it's even beyond pretending. It's like I'm tapping in to the energetic threads to this version of myself, because there's infinite versions of myself. And if I can imagine it, Source, I believe, has already been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt. It's a matter of stepping into that version of reality and aligning yourself with it.
I love that. And you just made me think about how when I first started on this journey, I would connect with my future self so much, and I still do. But now looking back, that future self that I was connecting with is me now.
Right.
And it's like over time, somehow, in some way, that gap just started getting smaller and smaller, and I just slowly became her.
Yeah.
And then now, obviously, I think it's so important to continually have goals and have aspirations and want to be an up-leveled version of you. So there's always that. And I think as humans, we're goal-seeking creatures. It's healthy for us to want to aim towards something. So, I'm and one of the biggest challenges with this work that I've gone through was figuring out what that perfect balance is of living in the moment and loving my freaking life as it is, exactly as it is, and also wanting more. So that was something in the past, I didn't really even live in the present ever. I just wanted more. Wanted more.
Right.
And then when I reached certain levels, then I thought to myself, okay, it's time to really move away from that old structure of thinking, because that's not how you want to live your life. And I don't want to get addicted to this pattern of I'll be happy when, because I know that if you go into creating, a better life for yourself, and you constantly have that mentality of I'll be happy when, even if you hit every single one of those goals and you don't change your internal world, you're still going to have that feeling of I'll be happy when, okay, now I need the next million. Now I need the next thing. So I, for in some way, found that wisdom at a young age to realize I need to stop that pattern. So I'm still working on it every day, but I can honestly say that now I feel like I've really found that balance of loving my life as it is, but then also having goals and aspirations to continue improving it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, understanding that the journey is the goal. You don't dance to get to a certain spot on the dance floor or listen to a song to hear the final note. It's about the journey along the way. And once you start to understand that this journey, this moment is as divine as, yes, there's more to unfold. And this process is beautiful. And, even little things, looking at, like, a lot of times people say something like, I can't wait for, and that's sort of, that statement is disrespects in a way, or diminishes the present, right? It's like, as opposed to saying I can't wait for, I really focus on saying, oh, I'm looking forward to this future version of myself that I'm stepping into, and not at the expense of this, who I am now, because who I am now is as divine as that version. And without the previous version, that future version, there's no contrast, there's no, and I think that's really important for people to understand who are on the other side of, your journey. And so it's, I always say, if you do the work, the success part comes as a byproduct. All these things that you're reaching for, it's like, the number one job is managing our vibration. And I think that's with the Superhuman app, the tool that you've created is a great way to just help to do that, just constantly reaffirming and rewiring those neural networks in the subconscious mind.
Absolutely. And that really is, one of the biggest things when we want to go into more of the spiritual. It's all about your vibration, how you're feeling, your energy every single day. And once I really realized that, it's like you can't cheat that I guess that rule that it's all about your vibration, right? You can't say, oh, I did it. I checked that off my list today. I, did the journaling. Why isn't it working? It's like, it's your vibration. It's how you are living every day and what energy you are living in every day. And one of the best tools that I learned throughout my personal growth and success journey was getting really familiar with how certain energies and vibrations feel in my body so I could just tap into it. There's something that I call my future self frequency. And this is something that I kind of coined, and we use this in Superhuman, and I've done some retreats and I teach it there too. So your future self frequency is essentially your unique frequency of the life that you want to live. And you can feel that frequency in the present moment. And it also helps you attract more of what you want into your future. And I kind of teach this in a way where you think about yourself here, okay? And then you start to layer on all of the different feelings and energies and emotion that you want to feel in your everyday life. And you start with one. So let's just say one of mine is love. So my first kind of energetic frequency that I'm tapping into is love. And I close my eyes and I feel it. And I just tune into that energy and I just love that feeling. And then I hold on to that and then I bring in the next layer. And let's just say the next layer is vibrant health. Like I really love that feeling of just being healthy and vibrant and radiant and like strong. So, and then, but you keep that love vibration and then you just add to it and then you mix them all together. Kind of, it's a weird practice, but this is how you create it. And then maybe the next one is abundance and wealth. Like, what would it feel like to have as much wealth as you desire, to have whatever you want, to help whoever you want, and just get into that energy. And then you kind of add in until you feel complete, until you feel, okay, this is a really good vibration. And all those things mixed together creates this unique future self frequency of yours. And everyone perceives love or health in a different way with a different feeling. So I really believe everyone that does this, even if they have the same words, has their own very unique frequency. And then even just talking about it now, I can tell you exactly like what mine feels like. And it's this feeling inside and around me. It's like this internal vibration. And then it also goes out, you know, in my energetic field. And, you know, it just feels like I feel this like beautiful vibration and it's just a light and it's just this feeling. And it feels like me. It feels like my soul, right? That's what it feels like the most authentic, peeled back, positive light version of myself. So that's really just, you know, one of the biggest hacks as well. Like when you kind of understand that frequency, and we have on the app, Create Your Future Self Frequency. It's a longer seated meditation actually, because you really need to focus when you do that. So we do have, you know, content like that, but you know, the main differentiator between our apps and or our app and other apps is really that kind of living it in everyday moments thing. But we do have some stuff like that. And, you know, we're launching a writing meditation too. So guided journaling, creating your unique frequency. But that's been a really big hack of mine, is just like understanding how to feel that way and just being really in tune with my physical body, because that really just dictates your energy. And then you think to yourself, okay, how is my energy right now? How is my vibration right now? And then you can just tap into it. And it's great to tap into it when you're in line at the grocery store, when you're waiting, I don't know, like at the post office, whatever it is that you're doing, instead of scrolling on your phone. And listen, I'm not perfect. I still scroll on my phone way too much, and I'm trying to cut that bad habit. But I've noticed that the more I do these things and the more that I tune into my ultimate frequency in everyday moments, the better my life gets, the happier I am. The more alive I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all about what vibrational pool are you swimming in most often. And, you know, there's so many things vying for our attention. I mean, social media being a great example, where it's so easy to get into the mindless scrolling. Or even for people like myself, I'm not big on social media. It's not a real passion of mine. And still, I mean, the main reason I like it is for funny memes or, you know, funny videos or whatever. And that's really, they make it so, it's like the new, you know, McDonald's French fries or Coca-Cola or whatever. It's
so
meant
addictive
to hack your brain. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to check in with yourself and say, okay, what vibrational pool am I swimming in now? How am I feeling? And how can I take a proactive approach to shift it? Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the more you are in an expanded, empowered state, tapping into your own unique, you know, greatest and grandest version of yourself, the more you're sort of holding that vibration, the stronger it becomes, the more solid, the more it becomes a natural baseline, the more your life starts reflecting that vibration and the circumstances around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty magical.
So, yeah, where to take it from here? I mean, what are some of the, you know, as far as your approach to health and wellness, are there anything that you've seen that you, you know, kind of, I mean, I think it's interesting that you referenced the meditation thing and it not being the traditional approach, not really being ideal for yourself, at least initially. And, like I said, I can really relate to that and have felt that same thing. So I'm curious, is there any other things that you've come across that you found that don't necessarily work for you, that you found? I mean, you seem like someone who finds alternative paths to things. So anything else that you found that doesn't work, and, I guess general wellness, tips?
Yeah, I'll tell you a recent discovery of mine. And that is that you don't need to be hyper perfect and routined and get everything checked off in your day to actually see improvements. This is a big one that I didn't even believe ever up until about a year ago. I was so regimented and I was really fighting my natural urge of being more in my flow and creativity. And I'm a little bit more impulsive, but not in the bad way. Like I'm very much so someone that wakes up. I don't have the same meal every day. I don't do the same things at the same time every day. I'm a lot less structured naturally as a person. And hey, maybe that's just my self-image, but that's just how I've been. And yeah, so I used to really fight myself on that. And I used to be very mad at myself if I didn't, do my morning routine exactly the way I wanted to. And I had planned and written it out. And I was a lot more just like harsh on myself back then. And of course I saw changes from that. I did. But over the past year or so, I've really come to the realization that you can still see a lot of improvement in your life if you're just following your natural flow, if you are just intuitively deciding what you need to do and when. It's really just about being connected to that intuition. That's the most important part. So now when I wake up, I don't have a strict morning routine. I don't need to wake up at 5:45 a.m. and do my 3 questions of journaling and then have my green juice and then my coffee. And then I don't have to do that to achieve the results that I desire. Because if you just kind of peel back the layers and think to yourself, what do I want? Okay, maybe I want to feel happier. Maybe I want to make more money. I want to get healthier and maybe get more fit, or whatever it is for you. What are those goals? Because what you're doing, we are told by society that you need to be so regimented, which I, really believed for all of my life. But then I've realized that, sometimes that's actually not right. Sometimes you can get farther by being intuitive. So now when I wake up in the morning, I think to myself, okay, what would I be really good at this morning for work? Let's say, maybe I'm going to write for my book. Maybe I want to, do something a little bit more analytical and left-brained and go through these spreadsheets my team wants me to approve. So just really being intuitive and being so comfortable in yourself and your energy has been a massive learning lesson for me, because I used to think that strict rules were the only way that I would get where I wanted to be. But that's just so not the truth. It's about your energy. It's about your intuition. It's about just really trusting yourself, because a lot of the time we put these very harsh rules upon ourselves because we don't trust ourselves that much. We just think this is what has to happen. And the more you trust yourself, the more in tune you are with yourself, the less numb you are. And this is another thing that's been a very big part of my journey, is realizing that we naturally want to move towards numbing things. It's easy. Overeating, watching too much TV, scrolling mindlessly on social media, being in front of screens has really become a numbing addiction for our, world today. And the less numbing activities that we partake in, the more alive that we feel. This has been a very big discovery for me from personal experience, and I know that everyone can resonate with this too. And then the more alive you feel, the less numb you feel. You can't really feel alive and numb at the same time. And that numbing feeling is that like disassociation, that you just feel like you're not even, like you're just a shell of a human essentially. And then you feel gross after, if you've just been scrolling for 2 hours on TikTok, your brain is not where it needs to be. And then you start making different decisions. You're not as driven or focused or happy. So it's just this like domino effect, right? So when I started to realize that, and I just simply put everything in my life into two buckets, this makes me feel alive, this makes me feel numb. I really decided to start focusing a lot more on the things that made me feel alive. And still every day when I'm doing things that numb me out, because I do that every day, I think to myself, no, Mimi, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want this to be the trajectory of the rest of my day. So I try my best to consciously make the decision. Let's move into feeling more alive. If you catch yourself, feeling numb and doing a numbing activity, why don't you just like snap out of it, snap out of that pattern and just go outside, put your phone in the other room, go outside, take like 5 deep breaths of fresh air and just reset your energy, reset your state, and then do something radical. Sometimes I will turn my phone off completely. I'll tell my team, I'm not available on my phone for the next 3 hours. Sorry. And I'll literally just remove myself from that situation. What I've noticed, the things that make me feel alive are listening to amazing music, Superhuman. That's like the foolproof way to feel alive immediately, is like this content, the basis of what I tell my audio engineers and the guided words that I say in these meditations. The basis of it is it has to make you feel alive. So that's like the best way to feel alive, in my opinion. Music and words are just so powerful. And then it's like getting up, moving, going into nature, being near nature, getting off the screen and going away from technology and just being alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things. So that's another realization I've had, where you are happier. It's a theory of mine. You are happier when you feel more alive and when you do less numbing activities that make you feel just not like your best self.
Yeah, I love that. It's really you're talking about, and I just had the pleasure of talking with, do you know who Bouchard is? Are you familiar with Bouchard?
No.
He's a pretty well-known channel and incredible teacher. And I recorded with him the other day, and we talked about, in each moment, how can you tap into what is my highest passion and excitement in this moment, and how can I follow that? How can I, and sometimes we have obligations or things that make it more challenging, like I'm at the office today and I need to be here, and this isn't my highest passion would be, at the water park with my family. I don't know, just making something up. But I think what you said is really smart, is like taking a moment to pattern disrupt. If you're really feeling, uninspired and like, oh, I can step outside and just deep, using the power of the breath and observing nature in all its glory and beauty, and just something as simple as a pattern disruption, and finding ways to feel more connected. And that what's cool about that is, of course, the more you're connected, and especially if you find a way to be connected, maybe by pattern disrupting, that creates more opportunities for things that are a reflection of your inspired state to appear, and oftentimes in miraculous, magical ways that you could never foresee. So I think that's a very powerful advice, to just constantly check in with yourself and, okay, what would be my highest excitement now, and finding that balance between regiment and flow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It is a dance for sure. And we're all doing it. Anyone tuning into this show is someone who's obviously putting in that work. And what I love about, think about the incredible amount of things that are vying for people's precious attention, and out of all the potentials of what could be, they could be absorbed in this moment, they're hearing these words, they're hearing this broadcast, and therefore they're a vibrational match to this information. So, if you're hearing this, you're closer than you think. If you've fallen into any comparison of, oh, I could never be where Mimi is, or it's so far away. No, it's not far away. It's so close that you're actually seeing it reflected in your life.
Oh my gosh, Brandon, I love that you said that. Looking back on my journey, it actually happened so much faster than I could have ever anticipated. You're closer than you think is one of my favorite sayings, and we say it all the time in Superhuman content, but it really is the truth. And we're all so much closer to that thing that we want. I'm a true believer in that. Our brains try to make all these logical reasons as to why we're so far away, but we're not. You really, really can change your entire life in 6 months, in a year. And then you look back, even, 5 years, like my journey, it's really, really changed in the past 5, especially. You look back and it's like 5 years. That's just a blip in your life. 5 years.
Yeah.
Just commit to change. And it's 5 years. And then the rest of your life, the whole trajectory for the rest of your life is just completely different. Yeah. It's like the compound effect with investing.
Yeah.
If you invest now and as early as you can, and you become that kind of person that you really want to be, and you commit and you do those things you need to do, it's like the rest of your life, it's not just when you reach that goal that you'll have that satisfaction. It's like the rest of your life is just going to compound. And just like interest, it's like that time creates this beautiful thing where it's like, suddenly you wake up one morning and it's like, oh my God, because that one change I made, because of that one commitment I made 30 years ago, look how different my life is today.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's important for people to really take into account the changes that are happening in the world and in medicine. And you take the combination of understanding a lot of these concepts that we're talking about, personal development concepts, spirituality, understanding the ultimate nature of reality, and that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. You start understanding a lot of that information, and then looking at where we're at with, modern medicine and technology. It's like all bets are off, and when it comes to comparing yourself to what's possible, your grandparents are from a totally different world. I mean, you think, oh, it's too late for me or whatever. It's like, they're saying the first person to live to 150 healthily, really with a high quality of life, is here now. And some people are saying way beyond that. I mean, they're talking about escape velocity coming by, in the next 5 years, 7 years or so, meaning our technological growth has completely outpaced our aging, and therefore humans can live indefinitely. So you start thinking even 150, and that's sort of the low end of what people are talking about as possible. So even if you're, 50 years old and you feel like it's too late for, it's like, no, compared to your grandparents who maybe died at 80, you've still got 100 years ahead of you. Like, you haven't even been born yet in comparison to them. So I think it's really important to start, changing the context of what it means to age. And, if thinking it's too late or any of that, I think a lot of people fall into that trap, and it's just not the case.
And it's all about that mentality too. Like, even just the fact that people know that technology is advancing so quickly that we're all going to be living longer, healthier lives. That's even like the placebo effect to actually help people live longer. There was this crazy thing I read the other day, and it was about how patients that are given a date of death, essentially, like, okay, you have 3 months to live, patients that are told that by doctors, there's this insane statistic. I forget the exact number, but it's definitely over 90% of those people die on that day or within 24 hours of that day. And It's so crazy to think. There was also this crazy story of a guy who was misdiagnosed. They said that he had this crazy cancer. He was going to die in a month. And he actually didn't, because when he died that in a month on the due date that they gave him, they did an autopsy and he didn't actually have that cancer. So it's like our brains are so freaking powerful.
Yep.
The placebo effect is so freaking real, and it's wild. So I'm excited for people just to start to be familiar and comfortable with the idea of living past even 120. But it's kind of weird because since I was younger, I never really resonated with the idea of dying at like 80 or 90. Like, I always thought to myself, no, I always just knew, like, I know I'm living a long time. I'm going to live well into my hundreds. I always just thought that. It was just this weird thing. So hopefully the placebo effect is working positively in my favor.
I mean, I always jokingly say, I think when we cross over and get to the other side and can kind of see the structure and understand the structure of physical reality more fully, we'll realize it was all placebo. You know, it's like we're literally belief is creating everything. If all of us all of a sudden believed we could fly, and all however many billion on the planet thought that and believed that, I personally believe we'd lift off and we'd be flying. And it's wild. I mean, 30% is on the low end of what they say, including is placebo, including surgeries. So It's like, we are creating our reality with our beliefs. And of course, there's a lot of scientific stuff like Dr. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief and on that kind of,
I love that book.
Support that. Yeah. I had him as a guest a while back as well. What an awesome guy.
Another good one is Mind Over Matter.
Who wrote that?
Dawson Church.
Oh, yeah. I thought so. Yeah. I just had him on like a few weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah. He's great. Really, really great guest. Well, I'd like to, as we sort of start to wind down here, I'd like to shift gears for a moment and go to story time. I love to hear stories of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal stories. And I'm wondering if you have anything fun and inspiring up your sleeve.
Yes. So the one that I was thinking of sharing on this podcast, this is a pretty crazy manifestation story that I don't really say that often because it's money related. And I kind of sometimes feel weird saying how much money I've earned. But this is a very inspiring story, so I'm going to share it.
Great.
So back in 2021, January 2022. So wait, no, sorry. When was this? Anyway, a year and a half ago, I had recently launched Superhuman. And it was doing super well. And, we were growing and the business it's a subscription model. So it makes the same amount pretty much every month. And we grow very steadily, slowly over time. Sure. So a few months after launching it, probably 4 or 5 months after launching it, we were doing around 30,000 in MRR. So 30,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. So I knew what I was going to earn the following month. Like there wasn't anything crazy that could happen in my conscious mind that would have made me earn a lot more.
Yeah.
And in that January, it was a January that month, I was incredibly focused and motivated on my financial goals. I embodied the energy of $100,000 a month Mimi. This was like what I said to myself, 100K a month Mimi. That was like the ultimate goal for me. 6 figures a month. That was crazy to me. It was the biggest goal ever. And that was a massive thing that I wanted, obviously. So at the time I was doing 30K a month very consistently. And there was no room for anything crazy really going on there with the business. So I was really focusing that month on embodying the energy of $100,000 a month Mimi and becoming a vibrational match with that potential reality. And that month I went to a meditation retreat. I was like so tuned in to this energy of my future. I was journaling every single day that month. And I was fully committed to just living as if it's already my reality.
Yeah.
Anyway, during that month, I had a weird opportunity come up just kind of out of nowhere. And it was this commission-based deal to sell like a package of health and wellness ebooks. And I don't really usually do that many like external partnerships, but I thought to myself, this is fun. They're going to add one of my courses into there. So I guess I can just, I know how my audience online buys. I will maybe make 10 grand out of this. Great. So I decided to say yes and to do it. And essentially I spoke about this thing for a week out of that month. And I was still kind of in the background in this $100,000 a month Mimi attitude, but really not expecting much from this collaboration because, again, I have had my audience for years. I know how they buy. I'm not going to make more than 10K with this commission deal, really. I'd be happy if I made even 3,000, right?
Yeah, right.
The end of the month comes. My business made $30,000. And I look at what I made from this commission deal, and I had made $70,000 from this commission deal. And it was
Amazing.
literally almost on the dot 100,000. It was like 100,000 and something.
Wow.
And I almost couldn't believe it. But then at the same time, I almost couldn't believe it. But then at the same time, I also was just like, of course that happened. Like, I was just like, yeah, like what else like would have happened? Of course.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like, I that New Year's buzz kind of wore off a little bit. February came along, and I didn't, maintain that $100,000 a month Mimi as much. And we kind of went back down to the normal MRR. But then after, a couple years, we're steadily multiples of that every month with my business now. So I've obviously, done something right over that time. But it just, that was such a synchronicity. And again, like, it must have been something energetic because it was like to the T, and it shouldn't have happened. And it didn't happen in a way I expected. And it was so random, and it didn't make sense either, because my audience, I had like 170,000 followers on Instagram, and I know how they buy. And it didn't make sense to me that I would have sold that many. It just happened. So that was a really cool money manifesting story of mine. And then since then, little things like that will also happen where if I really focus on something, like, I know that it works. I don't know why I don't do it every freaking day. But,
Right.
I'll like think about what I want, and, okay, I want a random video to go viral on TikTok about Superhuman. And then like a month later it happens, and we make thousands of new subscribers, or convert thousands of new subscribers overnight. And just things like that. So it's kind of crazy to think of. I like sharing that story because it just shows that it can just happen in the most random way possible.
Yeah.
But again, it's always in a way that you least expect.
Yeah. It's funny, a little sub-synchronicity, because we just mentioned Bruce Lipton, and he shared a story on the podcast I had with him years ago, very similar. I actually reference it in my book, The Golden Key. And he needed an exact amount of money. I think it was like 130 grand or something when the book was first coming out, or he was like things were very touch and go with being able to pay for the orders that were happening. And then, put an intention into it. His wife, I think, was pretty involved in that and had a whole process. And then, out of nowhere, here's the exact amount of money that we need, like from some investment she had made 30 years earlier and forgotten about. And all of a sudden they send a check. And so it really is all funny money. It is all energy. It is all, make believe in the best kind of way. And so continuing to, hearing those type of stories is such an inspiration and just validation that, as I like to say, we are one with we are so abundant. I mean, we built this place. We're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. This is, we are abundance. And so it's just a matter of how much of the faucet do we want to turn on, right?
Right. Oh, I love that. It's totally up to us. But then it's weird. It's like, why don't I do this every freaking day? Like, why don't I? Right. But then I just don't. So it's, we're so human at the same time, right? Like, it's just that perfect balance.
Yeah, we're in a process, and and if you had it all at once, the journey wouldn't be as enjoyable.
Yeah.
And, so you're pacing yourself at some level. You have a throttle, to make sure you don't go, too far too fast and miss the journey. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. I've so appreciated you and inspired by your journey, and I know the listeners are as well. What's the best way for people to connect and continue to follow your work? And
well, I think everyone should definitely at least give a free trial to a Superhuman free trial a shot. Mm-hmm. It's free. We also have a money back guarantee. So if you forget to cancel and hate it, we will literally give you your money back. Just commit to trying to do a little bit every day, and you will notice a radical shift. So I would say check out Superhuman. You can go to our website, superhuman.app. So www.superhuman.app. Instead of .com, it's .app, A-P-P. You could also check us out on Instagram, Superhuman app. And then you can find me on Instagram as well at Mimi Bouchard. And my podcast is just called Mimi. So you guys can go check that out too. I've had that podcast for about 5 years, and we have hundreds and hundreds of episodes as well. And would love to have you on one day as well, Brandon. So
yeah, that would be wonderful. Let's do that.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, I do have one final question for you here as we close out. It's my cliche closer, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Mimi Bouchard?
Oh my gosh, you should have warned me for this one. What's the meaning of life? I think the meaning of life is to feel every range of emotion possible, and to just be so in love with life, and to love people, and to love the world, and to just see the world through a lens of this lightness, because it's there, it's available to you if you can tap into it, and everyone can if you just focus on it. There's so much good in the world, and I think that the more people that see that and that embody that, the better the world will get as a whole. I think the meaning to life is just to experience love, and the people in your life are the most important things in the world, and just to be a good person, and to be empathetic, and to do the work on yourself so that you can have deeper relationships, because when you do the work on yourself, your relationships get so much deeper, and it's really all about the people in your life. That's the biggest realization I think I've had. It's all about the people in your life. And yeah, money and success is great, and it's definitely part of my sole desire on this lifetime, but it's really not everything. And it doesn't bring happiness. It brings comfort and, that kind of stuff, but it really isn't everything. The most important thing is the people that you love, and being the best version of yourself to help the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Relationships and taking care of your personal relationship with yourself and those around you, and really valuing those, and all the other stuff kind of comes as a byproduct of doing the work. Right. So amazing, Mimi. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and thank all of you for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well.
Thank you.